Migrant shambles, the latest idea, torpedo before it even left the harbour. Charlie in Gillingham to comment. Charlie, it's embarrassing this, isn't it? Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Nick. I live on the Kent coast myself. Just come back from the Isle of Wight, actually, on my boat myself. And, saw a fair few boats out myself. It's unbelievable, really.
Tell me what you see.
You see lots of men, a couple of babies, a couple of women, potentially, piled on a boat that looks like it's just about to capsize. And, your heart goes. It really does go. Because, you might have 15, 20 fatalities or people in the water, and you're the only person for 2-3 miles, potentially.
Have you ever gone over to help?
I've gone over and called the Coast Guard, and I've circled their boat, made sure they were fine, made sure they had water and they were comfortable enough. Bearing in mind they're in the middle of the sea. But I wouldn't let them on board because I don't know what they've got in terms of have they got anything on them, i.e. weapons, or have they got COVID themselves? And, they might hijack my boat, who knows?
Well, absolutely no. But as long as you offer comfort and call the Coast Guard. Can you think of a solution here? Because it wouldn't appear this latest idea is going to fly or float.
Yeah, I mean, why is the Border Force boat staying in the ports of Ramsgate and Dover? Why are they not on the British and French line looking fierce? All the time you're getting picked up by the RNLI, which do a fantastic job, bearing in mind. It's just like going down a motorway, isn't it?
I fear it is. Safe water next time you go. Be safe on the water next time you go out. Charlie, thank you for that, having just come back in your boat from the Isle of Wight, and we'll return to your views on that complex issue in a moment. 7 minutes before 8 is the time. But I mentioned before the news, Britain will launch data reform to boost innovation, economic growth and protect the public. The Information Commissioner's Office will be reformed to help drive economic growth. I don't fully understand it, so let's turn to someone who does, fortunately. Conservative MP and Digital Culture, Media and Sports Secretary, Oliver Dowden, who joins me now. Good morning, Secretary of State. What does this mean in English, sir?
Well, now that we've left the EU, we've got a great opportunity to set our own laws, and this is an example of it. So what I want to do is make the things that, the kind of pointless bureaucracy, get rid of some of that. So just take one example. When you go on those websites, you get the cookie banner. Yeah. You click consent or not consent. If you click you don't consent, you get those questions. You don't really know what they mean. What is the point of it? So let's consult on removing it. But at the same time, let's crack down on some of the things that really drive people mad. Those nuisance phone calls you constantly get because of a data breach, we're going to increase the fines for that up to 4% of the global revenue of those companies. That could run to tens or hundreds of millions of pounds. This is about focusing it on the needs of this country.
How long will the consultation take?
It will be a standard government consultation, so 12 weeks.
OK. And what happens after that?
So then we will take account of the views, and then we'll bring forward legislation in the sort of so-called third session, so the next session of Parliament, to give effect to this. OK. While I have the benefit of you on the show, can I just ask you a couple of other questions? The Home Secretary is clearly trying to divine a solution with what's called the migrant crossing crisis. It would appear that this one is not actually going to be able to float. Why do you suppose that is? Well, first of all, and I just caught the end of your previous conversation, this is a challenge that we've had for many, many years. It is worth noting that these people are going from a safe country, which is France, to England. So it's right that we try and stop it, mainly also because criminal gangs are the beneficiaries of it. The Home Secretary's looked at a huge range of different solutions. So we've given extra money to the French border force. We're introducing legislation, and one of the things she's looking at doing is turning boats back. I think it's appropriate to look at the full suite of those measures.
Yes, but it is reported that would actually be breaking maritime law, and the French do not take rather a dim view of this. So we're not going to be able to do that in reality, are we?
Well, we've been clear that we won't breach any of our international legal obligations, and nor will we put the lives of migrants at risk. But the Home Secretary is looking at how that can be achieved within those parameters.
Should we continue to be sending such vast sums of money over to the French when it would appear we're not exactly getting bang for the buck or value for the euro?
Well, that's precisely the point that the Home Secretary raised with her opposite number about exactly what the French were doing in return for this money.
Some other matters. For the first time since January, Labour is ahead of the Conservative Party in the polls. I'm sure you've already been made aware of this. They are at 35 points. The Conservatives are at 33 points, which is obviously down 5. Possibly, is this down to the unpopularity of the social care and health bill that we've seen this week?
Well, Nick, you've been around in the political world longer than I have. You know what I'm going to say to you, which is these polls go up, they go down. But I think the key point here is that at elections, in my experience, the British public vote for parties and governments who are willing to take difficult decisions in the long-term national interest. And that's exactly what we've done here.
Let's come back to an area that is much more on your brief, Secretary of State. How did you react when the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust decided, because of perceived issues regarding Sir Winston's past, it had to change its name to the Churchill Fellowship? The Prime Minister was not best pleased. How did you feel?
Well, I found it quite extraordinary, and I've read their explanation, and they say, various reasons for this. But the bottom line remains, if you look at the website before and after, there's a lot less Churchill on it after than there was before. And I do really worry, and you see this in relation to many charities, that they pander to a noisy woke brigade who are trying to challenge all aspects of our history. They would not have the freedom. No one would have the freedom to make these kind of decisions were it not for Churchill in the first place. And I do really worry when we start to question the sort of values that have made this such a wonderful country.
I think many people would agree with you. There's a problem at Camden People's Theatre. A show called The People's Tribunal on Crimes of Aggression suggests that the invasion of Afghanistan was a crime of aggression. This wouldn't matter, save for the fact that it's mine, my listeners, and your taxes that are funding this. What action will you take on this production?
Well, this is the first I've heard of it, and I will look into it urgently.
It's in the Times newspaper if you need a full report. Go ahead.
Righty-ho, I will do so. As you might imagine, I started this media round very early, so I haven't read every last article, but I will look at the overall principle. Of course, I would agree with you. The idea that it's a crime of aggression to get rid of a despicable regime that was mutating people, removing women's rights and so on is completely absurd.
Last couple of questions. We all know what happened 20 years ago tomorrow, and we are reflecting, and my listeners will be telling us how they remember and where they were. Where were you when you heard the news, or what will you be reflecting on tomorrow, Secretary of State?
Well, I was actually at law school, and we were in class, and a friend of mine just messaged me and said, "You've got to turn on the television." And I thought, what on earth is this? And the word sort of spread. And I actually remember we cancelled lessons that day. And I remember going home, and by the tube station, people were queuing to get their copy of the Evening Standard and crowding around TV screens in
like you see in the movies. Like you see in
exactly. It's like before we've all got these iPhones and everything else. But I will be reflecting on the losses of many British people and many people around the world, lost loved ones who've been suffering for 20 years after this terrible crime.
Let's lift the mood. That was New York 20 years ago. New York tomorrow night, at our time, a young woman will be playing tennis. The extraordinary success story that is Emma Raducanu. You are, of course, I remind everybody, sport is on your brief. Got to get a word from you on that, Mr. Dowden.
Well, isn't it wonderful?
It's
and doesn't
fantastic.
It crown a fantastic summer of British sport? Through to the finals of the Euros. I know that was England. We're second in the Paris league table. We were fourth in the Olympics. But I don't think anything's going to beat this. And however Emma does, and I know she'll do brilliantly, this surely is the absolute crowning glory. It's wonderful. You
were watching the British and Irish Lions, were you? I don't know if that was such a great success story this summer, Mr. Dowden. Lastly,
we can't have everything.
When was the last time a British woman won a tennis Grand Slam? Oliver Dowden.
Now you're pushing me. I know Virginia Wade. Was it Virginia Wade in the 70s?
It was. Congratulations, Virginia Wade in 1970.
I usually say to you, I'm not going to do one of your pub quiz questions that you always slip in at the end, and you've got me on that one.
Now you know you should welcome with a smile because you're top. If I could give you a pint, you'd get it because you got the pub quiz right. Oliver Dowden, thank you. It was Virginia Wade in 1977, as you rightly said. Thanks for your time, Oliver Dowden, Digital Culture, Media and Sports Secretary, appearing here on LBC. 8 o'clock, news time, Simon Conway.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.